Before Bethesda became a meme for glitches and corporate greed, they were innovators. They weren't just a game studio. They were architects of entire worlds. They created deep, immersive RPGs that defined an entire genre. And for years, it seemed like they could do no wrong. Back in the early 2000s, Bethesda was still a relatively small studio compared to gaming giants like EA, Activision, or even Square Enix, but they had something those other companies lacked. They had a vision. The Elder Scrolls series was already known for pushing the boundaries of open-world RPGs. Morrowind in 2002 was revolutionary. The game did not hold your hand, didn't give you waypoints, and didn't force you to follow a linear story. It was a game that respected the player. And then came Oblivion in 2006. This was the game that brought Bethesda into the mainstream. The voice acting was bad, sure. The faces were terrifying, yeah, but the sheer freedom was unmatched. You could be a hero, a thief, a warrior, or a spell-casting assassin. You could ignore the main story for hundreds of hours and still have things to do. It was the kind of game you could get lost in forever. Then, in 2008, they did something insane. They took the Fallout franchise, which was originally an isometric RPG, and transformed it into a first-person open-world experience. The result was Fallout 3, a game that not only reinvented the series, but brought in millions of new players. Fallout 3's success, though, it was not a fluke. Bethesda proved they knew how to build immersive, atmospheric worlds. They knew how to create choices that mattered, stories that pulled you in, and a sense of adventure that made every single playthrough unique. The world of Fallout 3, it felt lived in, from the ruins of DC to the underground labyrinths of the metro tunnels. It was a dystopian masterpiece. At that moment, Bethesda, they were pretty untouchable. But then, just 2 years later, Fallout New Vegas dropped. But it wasn't Bethesda that made it. It was Obsidian. Bethesda published the game, of course, but the actual development was done by the RPG gods at Obsidian Entertainment, a studio full of veteran writers and designers from the original Fallout games. The result, in my personal opinion and a lot of the fans, the best Fallout game ever made still to this day. New Vegas had everything Fallout 3 lacked: complex faction dynamics, truly branching choices, morally gray storytelling, and deeply reactive NPCs. It was an RPG in the truest sense, allowing you to shape the Mojave Wasteland with your own decisions. The writing was sharper. The world, it felt more alive, and there were so many different ways to play that no two people had the exact same experience. But here is the thing, guys. Bethesda, they hate New Vegas. They hate their Fallout game got outshined by a game they didn't make. They hate that New Vegas is still considered the gold standard of Fallout storytelling, while Fallout 3, in hindsight, looks much shallower. Todd Howard and Bethesda have never acknowledged New Vegas as a true masterpiece. They've refused to let Obsidian take another crack at Fallout, despite fan demand for a New Vegas sequel reaching absurd levels. And why? Because they don't want to be overshadowed again. And that right there, that's the moment Bethesda stopped being innovators and started being insecure. Then after that point though, guys, they came out with Skyrim. And this was Bethesda's cultural milestone. It wasn't just a game. It was the game. Everyone has played Skyrim pretty much, from hardcore RPG veterans to casual gamers who never touched a Bethesda game before. Skyrim took what Oblivion did and refined it, simplified mechanics, and making the world bigger, more beautiful, and more accessible than ever. But here's the thing. Skyrim also marked the moment that Bethesda stopped taking risks. They realized something after Skyrim. They could coast on their reputation. They didn't need deep RPG mechanics anymore. They didn't need intricate role-playing choices. They just needed a massive open world, some fun quests, and a few dragons. And this worked for a while. Skyrim was released again, and again, and again. I mean, let's name them. There's a Skyrim normal one, there's like the Skyrim Special Edition, there's a Skyrim VR, there's Skyrim for the Nintendo Switch, I think there's Skyrim on Alexa, It just, instead of making new Elder Scrolls games, Bethesda just continued to milk Skyrim dry for decades. While other studios were pushing boundaries, Bethesda was selling the same old over and over. They weren't making games anymore. They were selling us all on nostalgia. And then, guys, after that point, we are coming into Fallout 4. Which, it came after Skyrim. It was the next big project that they had in their studio. And to be fair, guys, it was a little fun. I mean, the shooting was definitely better. I'm going to give its flowers where it's deserved. Let's be fair, guys. The shooting has always, in my opinion, been better in Fallout 4. And the world, it definitely is beautifully crafted for sure in some kind of way, but something is kind of off about it if you ask me. I mean, the RPG mechanics are gutted. The dialogue system has been simplified into a Mass Effect style wheel where choices barely mattered. The factions weren't as deep as New Vegas, even though they Obsidian gave them a good blueprint. It's not like they couldn't have copied it. I mean, come on, we probably wanted them to. And then also, the story lacked the depth of Fallout 3. In my personal opinion, Fallout 3 has a way more deeper story than Fallout 4, especially considering in Fallout 4, it's Fallout 3's story kind of in reverse. Because in Fallout 3, you're finding your dad, but in obviously Fallout 4, you are the dad looking for your son. But let's move on from that. I mean, guys, sure, the settlement building is a neat distraction, but did any of us really ask for it? If we're really thinking about it, what do we get into Fallout for? Fallout is supposed to be about choice, consequence, and survival, guys. Not Minecraft mechanics in the wasteland. And still, Fallout 4 wasn't the disaster yet, though, guys. It was just kind of a warning sign. A sign that Bethesda was losing sight of what made their games great. And then, Fallout 76 happened. This was the moment the world realized Bethesda was not the same studio anymore. Fallout 76 launched as a dumpster fire of broken mechanics, missing features, and blatant greed. No NPCs, no real story, a buggy, lifeless world with no reason to really explore it. And the worst of all, Bethesda had the audacity to act like this is what fans wanted. And then there was the canvas bag scandal, the $100 a year Fallout 1 subscription, and the slow realization that Bethesda cared more about monetization than storytelling. They weren't making games anymore, guys. They were making platforms for microtransactions. Fallout 76 wasn't just a bad game. It was a betrayal. It proved that Bethesda had stopped caring about making RPGs with soul. Bethesda went from being the kings of RPGs to being an industry joke. They went from respected innovators to lazy corporate relics who refused to evolve. And they still haven't learned, guys. They still use the same buggy, outdated engine. They still prioritize re-releases and cash grabs over new ideas. They still act like they're untouchable, while studios like CD Projekt Red, Larian Studios, and From Software continue to push boundaries. Bethesda isn't beyond saving, but they are at a breaking point. The fans are tired of waiting, tired of excuses, tired of watching one of the greatest game studios of all time turn into a punchline. And if they don't wake up, then Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and everything else will be left in the dust by better studios who actually give a damn. Bethesda had already begun to show cracks in its foundation with Fallout 4. But no one could really have predicted the absolute catastrophe that Fallout 76 would come to be. It wasn't just a bad game. It was a complete betrayal of the fans who had supported Bethesda for decades. What should have been a fresh, innovative take on a Fallout franchise instead became a symbol of corporate greed, incompetence, and a studio completely disconnected from its player base. The problem wasn't just Fallout 76 was broken at launch. I mean, every Bethesda game is a buggy mess. The real issue was that Fallout 76 fundamentally misunderstood what made Fallout special in the first place. It stripped away storytelling, the choices, the deep RPG mechanics, and replaced it with a hollow, microtransaction-ridden shell of what could have been. Let's break it down piece by piece to truly understand why Fallout 76 was the moment Bethesda lost its soul. The first and most baffling decision Bethesda made with Fallout 76 was to launch the game with absolutely no human NPCs. Think about that for 1 second, guys. Fallout, a franchise defined by its quirky, interesting, and often morally ambiguous characters, was released without a single living human NPC to interact with. Instead, Bethesda's expected players to find immersion by reading computer terminals, listening to pre-recorded holotapes, and running fetch quests given by soulless robots. This wasn't just a step backwards, it was a complete misunderstanding of what made Fallout unique in the frickin' first place. Even the most basic interactions like bartering, forming alliances, or choosing between morally conflicting factions were completely absent. The entire game world felt empty, soulless, and dead on arrival. Without human NPCs to give context and meaning to the world, the game felt less like a Fallout experience and more like a walking simulator in a post-apocalyptic setting. And for me, this was the exact reason I stopped playing the game. The moment I realized there were no NPCs, I just lost all my interest. I literally went right back to New Vegas. That one decision killed any desire I had to keep going with the damn game. Then after a while, I forgot about the game entirely, and now my level 60 character is just kind of sitting there, and honestly, I wouldn't even know where to start if I went back. But I mean, hey, if enough people in the comments really want to see me give it another shot, maybe I'll do it with some of the supporters of the channel playing. I mean, I'm on Xbox, who knows? Maybe it's actually fun now. Maybe, but that's besides the point though. Look what they did when they released the game though, but anyway, Bethesda games, they've always been known for bugs. I mean, some were originally giant flying horses in Skyrim, some were annoying quest-breaking glitches in Fallout 3, and some were downright frustrating, like New Vegas crashing every hour for some players. I mean, I never got that experience that much, I have to be honest with you guys. I think when I first got that, because I bought New Vegas on the day it came out, I think like within like that first year of it coming out, where you had to actually play it on the original 360 hardware, because that's where I originally first played New Vegas, was the Xbox 360. But yeah, I had some crashes, but like to this day, I don't have any more crashes. It's kind of weird, but that's just one part of the whole thing. I mean, but I'm gonna list to you guys though real quick, just so I can. We know some. So the whole point of this is that we know some of these glitches. We've experienced some of them, but I didn't know there was this many in 76 that always, and I actually remember some of them, so I've made a list of some of them, and I've looked up some of them, so, because the game was it was a disaster technologically, here's some of the things, though, we all had to deal with. I mean, the server would crash every 20 to 30 minutes is one. Enemies freezing in place and becoming unkillable. I had that happen to me probably a lot, if I remember right. Players getting banned for cheating because they move too fast due to a glitch. That's funny. Infinite load screens that require a hard reset of the game. I remember that. Weapons disappearing from inventory after logging in. And then there's enemies attacking players through floors and walls, and game-breaking quest bugs that made progression impossible. It's like Bethesda didn't know how broken the game was, and they just launched it anyway. Fully aware that the product was nowhere near finished, like their attitude, just ship it and patch it later. This wasn't just incompetence, it was disrespectful to the fans who had supported Bethesda for the years. And then guys, here's probably the biggest thing that I remember this happening at the time too, and it's just crazy. It's just kind of looking back, especially now how they're going, I think this is the moment we all should have really realized what's happening. So, and if, guys, we're talking about the broken release though of Fallout 76. I mentioned it earlier, let's get back to it again. The game, it wasn't finished, but Bethesda somehow managed to make things even worse with one of the most infamous video game scandals in history. The Fallout 76 Power Armor Edition scam. Bethesda advertised a $200 collector edition of Fallout 76 that came with a real canvas bag, a wearable power armor helmet, and other small in-game perks. When customers received their collector's editions, they were furious. Instead of a high-quality canvas bag, Bethesda swapped it out for a cheap, flimsy nylon bag that looks something like you get for free at a dollar store convention. But here's where it gets worse. When fans complained, Bethesda refused to fix it. Instead, they offered players $5 of in-game currency as an apology. $5. For a bait-and-switch scam on a $200 collector's edition. The backlash was immediate. Players flooded social media with pictures of their cheap nylon bags. Journalists wrote scathing articles about Bethesda's blatant false advertising, and the gaming community roasted Bethesda into oblivion. Eventually, after weeks of bad press, Bethesda caved and offered to send out the original promised canvas bags, but by then, the damage was done. Bethesda had just proven to the world that they were no longer a trustworthy company. So, 76 was the turning point. It was the moment when even the most die-hard Bethesda fans had to admit something was seriously wrong. Bethesda had gone from a studio that players trusted to one that was openly exploiting its fan base for money. They stopped prioritizing quality, passion, and innovation. Instead, they prioritized corporate greed and rushed half-baked releases. For years, Bethesda had gotten away with releasing buggy games because they were still great games underneath the jank. But Fallout 76 had no excuses. It was just buggy. It was fundamentally broken, soulless, and designed to squeeze as much money as possible from players. So, did Bethesda learn their lesson? Not really. Instead of giving back to their roots and focusing on great style RPG games, they doubled down on live service models, microtransactions, and lazy monetization schemes. Fallout 76 should have been the moment Bethesda realized they needed to change. Instead, it became the clearest proof that they had stopped caring. The Fallout TV show, though, has been out for a while now, and to be honest, it's not bad. The production value is there, the atmosphere feels like Fallout, and overall, it does a good job at capturing the wasteland's chaos. But here is the issue. Bethesda is using it to retcon and overwrite the history of Fallout as we know it. And the biggest casualty so far? The NCR. The show has destroyed Shady Sands, effectively erasing the New California Republic, one of the most well-established and lore-rich factions in Fallout. And this wasn't some natural plot development, it's blatant revisionism. By blowing up Shady Sands, Bethesda has effectively removed one of the biggest narrative roadblocks to them reshaping Fallout in their own image. And where are they going next? New Vegas. This is not an accident. This is Bethesda's way of scrubbing Fallout New Vegas from canon without outright saying it. If you've played New Vegas, you know that the NCR isn't just some faction. It is the closest thing Fallout has to a functioning government. They're flawed, bureaucratic mess, but they represent stability, law, and a future beyond endless scavenging and war. Love them or hate them, they were a central force in Fallout's world building. By blowing up Shady Sands, Bethesda is essentially saying, yeah, that whole NCR thing, that doesn't matter no more. This now means, guys, think about it. No continuation of the NCR versus Legion conflict, which was one of the biggest unresolved stories in the entire franchise. No structured government left in the West. It's just an excuse to make the world feel lawless again. And it's a soft reboot of Fallout lore, where Bethesda doesn't have to acknowledge past world building. Bethesda hates dealing with factions and storylines they didn't create. They ignored New Vegas in Fallout 4, and now with the TV show, they're taking it one step further, erasing the old lore to make room for their own vision of Fallout. And now that the Fallout show has, confirmed that Season 2 will take place in New Vegas, it's raising serious concerns about what Bethesda plans to do with the region. If their first move was wiping out the NCR, what do you think they're going to do when they reach New Vegas? Will they rewrite what happened in Fallout New Vegas? Will they completely ignore the factions and conflicts established in the game? Or will they make New Vegas a ruin rather than a thriving city it became after the game's events? Everything Bethesda has done up to this point suggests that they're not here to honor New Vegas. They're here to bury it. And let's not forget why Bethesda even greenlit the show in the first place. It's not to expand the lore, it's to sell more Fallout games. The show has gotten a wave of new people interested in Fallout, and Bethesda's goal isn't to get them into play New Vegas or Fallout 3, it's to shove them towards Fallout 76 and its cash shop. The cycle here is clear, guys. People watch the show, they Google the best Fallout game to start with, Bethesda directs them to Fallout 76 and not the classics, and then they get bombarded with live service microtransactions instead of a real Fallout experience. The show is a bait and slick, well-produced distraction from the fact that Bethesda has failed to deliver a real Fallout game in nearly a decade. If Bethesda actually cared about Fallout as a story-rich RPG, they would have used the show's success to confirm Fallout 5 with a proper single-player RPG focus. They would have even given Fallout back in some way to Obsidian to help develop Fallout New Vegas 2, since Obsidian actually understands how to write for the series. Clearly, and it's not even close, but... Or, another thing they could have even done? They could have even expanded on the NCR other major factions instead of erasing them to make room for their own dumbed-down version of Fallout. But nope, instead they're gutting the lore and treating Fallout as a brand rather than a world with a deep, beloved history. The Fallout TV series may look great on the surface, but underneath it, Bethesda is using it as a tool to reshape the franchise in their image. First, they erased the NCR. Next, they're heading for New Vegas. What else are they planning to rewrite? Bethesda, they have really two choices right now. They can respect Fallout's past and build upon its legacy, or erase what came before and turn Fallout into another empty, mass-market live service franchise. Right now, they're choosing the second option. And if Bethesda doesn't wake up, Fallout will become a franchise that only exists for cash grabs and nostalgia farming, instead of groundbreaking RPGs like it used to be. And if that happens, we might as well call it the real apocalypse. Bethesda didn't fall overnight. It wasn't one single failure that did them in. It was a slow, painful erosion of trust. A series of terrible decisions that stacked up over time. They went from being the kings of RPGs to a soulless corporate machine, pumping out broken games, monetized garbage, and half-hearted content while pretending they still understood what made their old titles great. At this point, it's impossible to ignore, guys. Bethesda has lost their way. The only question left is, can they come back from this? Before Starfield's release, Bethesda hyped it up as their next great innovation, their Skyrim in space. They promised a vast universe, limitless exploration, and deep role-playing mechanics. What we got? A lifeless, repetitive game with loading screens everywhere, zero meaningful NPC interactions, and a galaxy that felt more like a collection of static menu screens than a living, breathing world. NPCs are bland, robotic, and lack any memorable dialogue. Planets are copy and pasted, empty husks with nothing but recycled assets. The RPG elements are watered down, a Bethesda staple at this point. Exploration is reduced to loading screens between dull, meaningless locations. This was supposed to be Bethesda's return to form. The proof that they still had what it takes to make groundbreaking RPGs. Instead, it was proof that they've officially run out of ideas. If Bethesda can't even make a proper space RPG work, what hope does Fallout 5 have? And with Fallout 76's disastrous launch, the Fallout TV show's rewriting lore, and Bethesda doubling down on live service models and microtransactions, the biggest question is, why should we trust Bethesda to make Fallout 5? They've proven time and time again they don't understand what made Fallout great. Fallout 5, if it ever does actually happen, is likely going to be more streamlined, casual mechanics that strip away real role-playing depth, more corporate oversight ensuring maximum monetization, and more focus on live service garbage rather than deep, single-player storytelling. A world that lacks meaningful NPC interactions, real factions, and choice-driven gameplay. If Bethesda couldn't handle Starfield, a brand new IP where they had full creative freedom, why would we trust them to handle Fallout 5? They've already erased New Vegas, gutted the NCR, and proven they want to reshape Fallout into a different franchise entirely. At this point, Fallout fans are holding on to the past, hoping that Bethesda will somehow fix themselves. But guys, let's be real, they won't. If Fallout is to survive, Bethesda needs to stop pretending they're the only ones who can make Fallout games. The only way forward, in my opinion, guys, is to give Fallout some control back to Obsidian. Let the people who made Fallout New Vegas create New Vegas too. Stop being scared of being overshadowed and actually let a studio that understands the franchise take the reins. Number 2, ditch the creation engine once and for all. Bethesda's outdated, buggy, ancient game engine is killing their games. They need a modern engine with a better AI, better NPC interactions, and smarter world building. Number 3, stop the monetization BS. No more live service garbage. No more forced multiplayer, no more atomic shops and convenience microtransactions. Make a full single-player game without corporate interference. Number 4, listen to the fans for once. Fallout fans have been screaming for deep RPG mechanics, real choices, and faction-driven storytelling. Bethesda needs to stop ignoring that feedback and actually deliver what made Fallout great in the first place. Number 5, stick with me here. They gotta get rid of Todd Howard or force that guy to fucking evolve. Todd Howard's leadership it's stuck in 2011. His design philosophy has not changed in over a decade. That guy's gotta either step the hell down and let some, better minds step forward, or completely rethink how Bethesda games are made. I mean, there's no denying it, guys, anymore. Bethesda is not the company they once were. They've gone from pioneers to corporate cash grabbers, from RPG visionaries to lazy rehash merchants. Fallout has been gutted. Elder Scrolls is nowhere in sight, and Starfield was a massive disappointment. And yet, there's still a small sliver of hope. If Bethesda can swallow their pride, listen to the fans, and give Fallout to a team that actually understands it, then maybe, just maybe, there's still a future for this franchise. But if they continue down this path of monetization, rewriting lore, and ignoring RPG fundamentals, Fallout will become just another soulless franchise that exists to print money. It's time for Bethesda to make a choice. Wake up, or become irrelevant forever.